Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Before we get into the interview today, I want to say a few words about our sponsor, Jane. Jane is an all-in-one practice management software that can help you manage your practice with a suite of features that make it easy to meet with individuals, couples, families, and a whole lot more. My practice actually switched to Jane a few months ago. The transition was as painless as it could be, and we got a ton of help by Jane customer support along the way. Some things that I've loved about Jane so far is it's extremely customizable, and the customer support is really just on another level. We're also saving a lot monthly because the pricing on Jane is a lot more favorable than a lot of other EHRs out there. So if you're interested in learning more about Jane, just go to jane.app/mentalhealth-us. We'll put that in the description. You can use our code PPW1MO for 1 month off of your new account. Today, we're talking about how to create a sales funnel to scale your practice. I'm going to introduce my guest today, Brent Stutzman. After helping his wife successfully launch her practice in 2016, Brent saw a need to help other therapists launch, market, and scale their practices. Since then, he's launched over 12 private pay practices across the country, an intake CRM software for therapists called TheraSaas, and an e-course called Private Pay Practice Program. His mission is to help launch, grow, and scale over 30,000 private practices by 2030. He's a certified story brand guide and lives in Chicagoland with his wife of 19 years and their 3 beautiful children. Brent, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, what else should people know about you and kind of how you got here and what you're up to today?
Yeah, well, that kind of summarizes the entrepreneurial journey. I'll share a little bit of this later in the
Hmm.
podcast, but it came out of necessity that I had to learn how to do branding and marketing, and I'm a curious mind, so I just dove right in. So I consider myself really kind of a full stack marketer. Like I've done it all. I've done all the things. I bought all the programs, and so now I'm on a mission, either like directly helping private practice owners or through my newsletter, a YouTube channel, and the different programs and softwares to really help 30,000 private practice owners scale up their practices using softwares and systems and things like that along the way. So, and just having like a really good time doing it.
Yeah. I could tell. Yeah. When we first met, I could tell, I think some people, um, just kind of pick this niche of like helping therapists seems cool. But I think when people really have a deeper story behind it and a real passion for it, it shows and makes a big difference. Um, and also, learning some of these things kind of by situation, it resonates with me as well. Years ago when I started my first practice, didn't have money to put into the business. And so that meant I was the branding guy and the marketing guy and the
Right.
SEO guy and all those things, right? And got as far as I could. And then later I went, oh my goodness, I have all this knowledge now and I could share it with other therapists, right? And
Hmm.
that's taken many forms over the years. And then I've just always loved this side of things. Also love story brand, big fan of Donald Miller and that whole side of things. But yeah,
Yeah. It,
yeah,
it works.
yeah,
I mean, it's amazing. That's
yeah,
why I drank the Kool-Aid, because I was like, I needed something to be able to have a framework to launch my wife's practice. And I
yeah,
just needed something, right? Just like therapists have a framework for how do people change, right? You need a framework or modality or system of thinking, similar with branding and marketing. And
yeah,
I've done it so many times. I was like, man, this thing just really works, and it resonates with
yeah,
people too. Like it, so
totally.
it's a great system.
Yeah. Well, let's get right into our topic. So today we're talking about creating a sales funnel for a private practice. Where should we begin with that conversation?
Yeah, well, let's kind of start with what private practice owners what they want. At the end of the day, they want a predictable pipeline of new client leads coming into the practice, right? Especially for group practice owners. The problem is that we're looking to solve today in our podcast conversation is that many practice owners, they don't have a sales funnel that consistently drives those client leads to the practice, or they have a sales funnel but it's broken and they don't know how to fix it. Well, what's even worse though, what I've been experiencing these last handful of years is that marketing today isn't easy. Showing up on page one of Google when your clients need your services has been vital for growing a practice these past 20 years. However, private practice and they practice owners, they face a lot of competition from big directory sites like Psychology Today, ThriveWorks, Good Therapy, telehealth companies like BetterHealth, Headspace, Talkspace, Almond, like, and half dozen more, right? There's so many more of these coming on. And what happens is those websites are pushing down the smaller private practices further down on Google. And, page 2 of Google is really known as the graveyard, right? Most people just don't even make it to page 2. And so what this is like a new reality for a lot of practice owners is that they need a powerful sales funnel that incorporates both digital and organic strategies for them to work 24/7 to stand out from the competition and attract their ideal client. So here's what I want practice owners to know is that if you don't have a sales funnel, there's a good chance you're not going to grow. And I love to kind of set this up with the kind of an origin story. When my wife came home 7 years ago, she came home from the agency that she was working at. She was getting her hours in. She was got her master's degree in clinical psychology. And she came home, she said, Brent, I want to start my own practice. And I just want to focus on kids like 2 to 12. And I want it to be 100% private pay. I don't want to have to deal with insurance. So my wife was 6 months pregnant with our son at the time. We had twin girls who were 2 years old. I didn't have, thinking about it, it's like we were crazy. I didn't have a marketing degree. I've never launched a business before. We didn't have money to like pay someone to build us a website or a sales funnel. Like I didn't even know what a sales funnel was then and didn't know I needed one. We were living in Chicagoland to be near family. And we couldn't just live on my salary alone at that time. So we were starting from scratch and we had to make the business work. So I just went headfirst learning all the things. This is like when YouTube was really starting to get awesome with all the how-to stuff, like branding and marketing, this is like 7 years ago. I would wake up at 4 a.m. and just from anxiety, but also like I have all these really fun ideas and I had to write them down. And so I had to go in and learn how to do video because I knew like video is going to be really important if we're going to have a private pay practice and really standing out. And so I had to learn how to do video. I had to learn how to do editing. I had to learn how to build WordPress websites, SEO, like all the things. And for several months, this is like all I obsessed with. So what happened was Kid Matters Counseling, which is the name of my wife's practice. She now it's a group practice of 9 clinicians. It's all private pay and it's all focused on children. Like it's been amazing. But since then, there was a friend of mine. I'm like, hey, I really like your brand as like a therapist and as a person. If you ever wanted to launch your own practice, like let's partner up and do it. And he's like, okay, I need help. So he did. And so we launched that one and that's going strong today with 2 different locations. And then since then, I just kind of like, therapists don't have a lot of money to start. And so I basically came along and said, hey, look, like we'll do like a revenue share thing. And if I do my job and grow, then I'll get paid. But if I don't, then like I don't get paid and you're not out of money. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how it started. Like, so I'm like over 12 private practices now. And so that's been great. So I learned a ton in that. And so I hope at the end of what I was going to say is going back to the sales funnel, every time we launch a practice, I'm like, it's all about that sales funnel, the digital presence and the organic word of mouth, putting in systems in place. And that's how I grow practices. So at the end of this podcast, I'm going to give your listeners a link where they can download all the free stuff I'm going to give them and even more. And my goal is just to kind of give everything away that I've learned, or at least most stuff today in the time that are allotted for us, the marketing, the systems that I've made in my own private practice. So really 2 things could possibly happen. One, that maybe one of your listeners want to partner up and scale their practice, or 2, that they would maybe take advantage and consider subscribing to TheraSaas, the CRM software that I'm promoting. So that's kind of the introduction and the setup. And before we jump in, I'm curious if you have any questions around any of those things. Otherwise, you can show the slide and we can jump in.
Yeah, I'm excited just to keep going. You're on a roll, and I want to keep it that way.
All right, sure, yeah. All right, so for those who are on YouTube or watching this, I do have a slide up of a sales funnel, and it's really kind of a funnel, and there's really 3 steps to it. But first, I want listeners to know that a sales funnel is it's a marketing strategy that guides potential customers through a series of steps, and the end goal is to convert them into a paying client. So a sales funnel really has three major components. You could have 4 or 5 or 6 if you want to get complicated, but there's really like three. And the first one is the top of the funnel is the curiosity stage. And then there's the enlightenment stage, which is right in the middle. And at the very bottom is the commitment stage. And I'll dive in a little bit more into that in just a minute. But there's
Mm,
really three like sales funnel assets that clinicians need to have, practice owners need to have. One is a brand message, which is the words that you use to talk about the problems you solve for your clients. The second thing is a website, particularly at least a homepage. You need a well-designed website talking about the problems you solve and the services you offer.
mhm,
And then there's a lead generator, which is just a free resource that you can give away to capture somebody's email address and then nurture that relationship with an automated email campaign. Okay, so that's really just the outline of the sales funnel. So I'll jump over to the second one,
mhm,
or the second slide here. All right, so every potential client is asking when they engage with your brand, can you solve my problem? And this is the curiosity stage at the very top of the funnel. It's really about piquing the potential client's interest by answering their most pressing questions about the problem they are trying to solve. And if you can succinctly and clearly answer the question, can you solve my problem? You have hooked them, and that potential client will begin to move down the funnel into the enlightenment stage. So let's talk about the website assets a little bit here at the curiosity stage of the sales funnel. The first one is your brand message. All right, so what's a brand message? Well, a brand message is kind of like a movie script. No movie is created without a script. It's the words that provide the foundation of a blockbuster hit or flopbuster, however you want to call it. Well, the script provides the words that will give direction for the movie. Like, where's the action at? Is it a mystery? Is there suspense here? Scripts also detail like how many actors are needed. They provide guidance on inspiration on for the set design, location shooting, costume design, what type of lighting may be needed. A producer will not hire a director, actors, set designers until they have a script. So imagine if you tried to make a movie without a script. It would just
mm,
be a tremendous waste of time and money because you don't have the guardrails in place to create your movie. Your brand message plays the same part in your marketing. So many practice owners will create a website without having a clear brand message. That's why there's like so many confusing websites out there. And if you confuse, is what Donald Miller says, like if you confuse, you will lose those client leads and that potential revenue. Your brand script is really there to be the guide rails to design a website that actually communicates with words the problems you solve and how you can improve your client's life. Your brand message is the basis for your sales funnel and for all of your marketing. And I'll have some free resources I can give you on how to create a clear brand message at the end of the end of the podcast.
great.
And if you want to dive deeper into branding, I highly encourage you to read Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. So before I move on in there, John, I'd love if you have any questions or thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, building a story brand is a great place to start. I think a lot of therapists just sit down and start writing, or they're literally editing their website as they go and just kind of winging it, right? And even something like a tagline being like the thesis of your site that ties the message together, right? Or going back to the problem you solve, or even like what is the big promise
Mm,
of what your brand offers, what your company offers, and thinking about that. And when you have that, and most therapists can talk out loud about that, and are really good at talking about it. But then when it comes to putting it on a page, we kind of get scrambled and just start kind of throwing stuff at the page, and the results can be kind of incoherent, right? Or when we don't know what to say, we just start talking about ourselves right off the bat, right? That's another common
yeah.
thing we
And the
see.
Netflix shows that you're currently watching and how you
Yeah,
enjoy them. And it's like, well, like most people just don't care.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like I said, they come to your website because they have a problem.
yeah,
So if you're not talking about the problems you're going to solve or how you
yeah.
can help solve those problems, then you're going to
Or
lose
they
them.
talk about the features, right? I'm warm and empathic, which let's hope all therapists are. So you've already lost me there,
Right.
right? Or
Right.
getting into the nitty-gritty of, the methods that I use or this and that. It's like, hold up, hold up. I don't even know if I'm in the right place. I don't even know if you can in fact solve my problem,
Right.
right?
That's
And
right.
so not assuming anything until we've kind of built more of that relationship through your copy and
Yeah.
getting it. really simple. I talk about using third grade language, and that's about the level of language that I like to use in copy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's more advanced. I usually like to say like second grade. I mean, so
great,
you're like
even
way more
better.
advanced in your copy than
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
well, I love the like this leads into my second point, which is really about
Hmm.
your homepage in that header section.
Great.
So like I talk about your homepage kind of being the main asset for your funnel, one of the main assets. And and um and you really have to answer the question, can you help solve my problem in about 3 seconds?
Yeah,
And a lot of therapists I've looked at a lot of websites, they rarely even sometimes they don't even mention that they're counselors or they're therapists
yeah.
right on the header or anywhere, right? So Donald Miller calls this the grunt test, and you have like 3 seconds to do it. And there's really three questions you have to answer right away in those 3 seconds, or you're going to lose them.
Hmm.
So was like, what is it that your practice, what does your private practice do? Second question is, how can you help them? And the third is, how can the client get started with counseling? You have like 3 seconds to kind of put that right at the very top,
Hmm.
or you're going to lose them. So for example, like, um, in the longer conversation, more slides, I have like website examples, but let's just say for our time here,
Hmm.
if you're a couples counselor, you could simply say at the top on your header with a picture of a smiling couple behind it, right? Counseling for hurting couples, get back to connecting and loving one another, right? And then a button that just says like schedule an appointment.
Yeah,
That simple. You don't have to overthink. Like you said, third grade level that a third grader can understand it. Because I talk a little bit more. We could talk about this too. Is that like people are coming to your website in distress,
yeah,
right? Their world has been rocked, and so for their brain to be able to like it's not able to understand clever copy or cute copy
yeah,
or ironic copy, right? It's looking to solve this problem so bad. Like that's what it's thinking. That's what's on your mind. That's what you're thinking about. So if you're not clear in how you can solve that problem or
yeah,
help them, then you're just going to lose them. So,
yeah.
um,
I see a lot of examples of confusing branding. I saw something recently which was like a big billboard, and it was like, I think an HVAC company, and then all it said was like HVAC done differently. And it just left me with so many questions.
yeah,
I'm just like, differently how, right? Like
I
to your
take pictures of billboards in Chicago here
yeah,
because like I was like, man, it's a tremendous amount like waste of money.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I have to think of I got them, but I was like, there's one called. It just said the dump
yeah,
on it. And underneath that, it was like, it's basically for thrift store shoppers or something like
yeah,
that. I was like, "Oh, that's fascinating. I bet this is like a really like weird Goodwill type of thing." And I went online and it was a furniture store.
yeah,
And I was like, "Well, that was a lot of money just wasted
a whole lot,
on
a whole lot.
on that Chicago billboard." Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, I take pictures of these bad examples because it's a good
yeah,
reminder. It's a good reminder. So I would say kind of a couple of action items from just the curiosity stage in the
mhm,
sales funnels. Create your brand message, a clear one, and then update your homepage header. And so what I'll
mhm,
do is, at the end of our podcast, and in the show notes too, there'll be a link to it. But I'll give you like it's a free kind of template that I use for all my clients when creating a brand script, and then I have a video walkthrough of like how to actually use it. And then I'll also include there's a homepage wireframe template. So it's a wireframe that I use. A wireframe is essentially just an architectural drawing or something that you could put all the words in the right places and send it off to your website designer.
yeah.
And then I have another thing called the ultimate website checklist for therapists, and so they can download that too, and they can have that. So
So
um,
cool.
yeah. So, but before we move on to the next stage, the enlightenment stage, you have any thoughts or questions we can riff on a little, or
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving what you're saying on the the tagline piece. The grunt test, I think, is great. I think even having non-therapists, um,
yeah,
see if they can understand your message or what you're talking about, because as therapists, we get really stuck in talking to one another about what we do, and can kind of, it's like a mechanic talking to a mechanic, right? Versus my mechanic explaining to me exactly what's wrong with my car in a way that I'll understand,
yeah,
right? Some
Yeah.
mechanics are really good at that. Some are really bad and they lose business or they overwhelm or they make people like me feel kind of dumb, right? Um, as to like, what kind of problem do I have and how
Yeah, they're
does
like,
this
"Hey, yeah, come here,
part work?
let me show you what we're looking at." It's like, and
Yeah,
you're like, "Well, duh, 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 duh." I'm like, "Yeah, man,
yeah,
can I drive this car out at the end of the day? Because I gotta pick my kid
right,
to school." Like,
right. Yep.
yeah, you can lose them in the psychobabble and all that stuff. Like, I was thinking, what do I name my business? Well, brand your practice. Like, I will always fault on clarity over cuteness or anything because
Yeah,
I don't wanna confuse anyone at the end of the day.
yeah,
And, it's not if I would have spent more time on the branding, I'm sure I could have come up with a better name, but it's like, that's what it is.
yep,
What it
yep.
is. It's
Well,
clear.
thinking about that outcome piece too, right? It's like, what is my mechanic trying to help me do? He's trying to help me
Mhm.
get back on the road.
Right.
So there could
Yeah,
be something
yeah,
there around what's the future outcome that our clients are hoping for, going back to that couples therapy example, right? It's like helping couples reconnect or
yeah,
whatever it is. Like something as simple as that can be strong and powerful and almost impossible to confuse people.
yeah. I mean, that's the wonderful test. Like, how can you do it where your brain isn't burning calories and they have to think about it, and you have to do like 6 levels of like irony, like just getting through the levels to finally understand what it is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll say one more thing. Like,
Mhm.
I drive my cars into the ground. So I have a Toyota Matrix that's like almost 20 years old. And sure enough, in Illinois here, we have to do these emissions tests and they won't give you a
Yeah.
license plate sticker. And sure enough, every year that stinking check engine light comes on right before I have to go this
Of course.
emissions test. So so I have this conversation every year with my mechanic. I'm like, well, check engine light's on. Can you fix it? He's like, yeah, Ron, it's gonna cost you this much. I'm like, look, is there any way you can just repair it and I need it back by this certain time because I have to
Yeah.
get my missions? You know what I mean? It's like, can I just get that sticker, right? Help me get that sticker for just one more year.
Yep.
But yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So how you can actually help them, meaningful connections, whatever that desired transformation outcome that they want, have that on your website.
Yep.
Have that right up at the top. It'd be really
It's
good.
great. Great.
So like they're asking you, right? Can I trust like the curiosity stage, like, can you help me with my problem?
Yep.
And if we move into the enlightenment stage, it's where imagine on their website they start to go a little bit further down. So
Yep.
you've answered the question, right? They answer the question, yes, I think I can trust you, or I think you can solve my problem. And now they're asking the question, well, but can I trust you with this really intimate problem? And that's the enlightenment stage. And so they're going to be learning and consuming more content from you. So I'm going to just talk like briefly, like 6 ways, and let me change my slide here for my for those who are watching too.
Mhm.
All right. So blogs, right? That's a really powerful way to kind of get your mind on paper and people to kind of get into the way you think about how you can help people and healing, how the healing process takes place. And it's
Mhm.
also good for SEO, right? The other one I think is, this is absolutely part of when I partner with therapists to grow their practice is videos.
Yep.
So having a few videos that dive deeper into how you can provide therapy and how you can help them is it's like the fastest way to build trust.
Mm.
Because like I always think videos really should do 2 things. One, they should attract your ideal client and they should repel people who are not a good fit.
Yep.
And I think every clinician should have their own profile video because people shop for their clinicians like they do their Amazon products. They kind of want to try it on a little bit. Like, do I even like this person? Video will just
Yep.
take away all that risk. So, I
Totally.
actually really like this person. And I think they're the right guide, right? Going back to the
Yeah.
story, Brand, like they're the
Yeah.
right guide for me to help me solve this intimate problem. So I think,
Well,
oh,
yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
And that, for a lot of therapists, that intro call, like that free phone consult, is where they're doing some of what they could do in a video, right?
Mm,
Of just giving the
yeah.
client a sense of what it's like to talk with me just like I'm talking now. And if I were hearing out a client about their issues and I'm thinking through, could I help them? And if so, how might I help them? How have I helped someone like you in the past? What questions can I answer here, right? And doing that or thinking about your intro call and bringing some of that to the video, right? Like you
Mhm.
said, answers a lot of those questions, creates that rapport, even for therapists that say like, oh, I'm not good on video, or I don't know how, or whatever,
Yeah.
working through some of those kind of mental blocks around putting yourself on video, which
Mhm.
I'm always interested in helping therapists with those
Yeah.
blocks, can also, again, help bring people further through this sales funnel process, right? A little deeper into that funnel.
Yeah. And, I had a thing above my other computer over at my monitor. It's like,
Hmm.
my theme last year was like, how do I build intimacy at scale?
Yeah.
How do you build intimacy? Video, hands down. And,
Yeah. My
I mean, you know
gosh.
this, right? I mean, you're
Oh
like an
yeah.
OG for a therapist
Yeah.
on YouTube, like you've been around for a while.
Yeah.
So video for sure, like I think it's the most powerful way to answer that question, can I trust you? It's not just
Yeah.
that, it's also the words that you're saying in that video, right? So I think there's really like 3 videos that a therapist should be focusing on a website. One is like a homepage video, which is just an overview. Like you could just take that brand message guide, that template I gave, you can
Use that.
download and just use that. It's really simple.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So your homepage video, I think videos for individual clinicians are absolutely, like, you want them on their intake form. Let's say you're using TheraSaas, you have a little drop down of all the clinicians that you have at your practice. Would you like to work with a particular clinician? And they self-select who they want to work for. Makes the
Hmm.
intake coordinator job so much easier because they're like, I'm going to work with this person, unless they have a
Yep.
wait list, but that's another problem. And, so videos for individual clinicians. And then I think a thank you video. So after they hit that
Mm.
submit, submit an application for an
Yeah.
appointment or form or a phone call, you send it to a thank you page. And on that, it just says, hey, thank you so much for taking this courageous step and seeking help.
Mm.
Let me know I'm going to tell you what the next steps are. And so you just give them a simple plan. Here's what to expect. That's it. So
That's
I
good.
think at least you have 3 videos on your website. Um, and then, okay, if I can keep going on the Enlightenment, can I
Hmm.
trust you? Google reviews, let's face it, like, gotta have them. I know you can't ask
Yep.
current clients, but you can ask colleagues, other folks, friends, family. Google's agnostic. If they can speak to like your ability to listen and provide counsel, like those are
Yep.
all good things. Those are all good things.
That's huge.
Um, I think an email newsletter is really important. If you listen to enough podcasts and entrepreneurs, they're all going to say, I wish I started earlier with a newsletter.
100%. Yeah.
Everybody says it. I
Yep.
got serious about it about a year and a half ago and doing my own sales funnel. And it's like, I wish I did it earlier because it's
Yep.
significant. So you could just send a newsletter once a month. That's all. You're
Yep.
just talking about how you can help, like,
Yeah.
whether it's anxiety, depression, social media, like there's lots of things to talk about. Just send them a letter. And that way you're just showing up in their inbox, providing some
This is
value.
huge.
It's
Yeah.
huge. Let me shut
This is
up.
a huge one
I
for
got a
me.
crazy
Yeah.
story about it, but go first. I got a
Yeah.
crazy.
No. So I mean, so many therapists that I meet with, and also even therapists that I think of that I've where you have come to mind, I thought you should talk to Brent, or they're looking to kind of scale or kind of looking
Mhm.
for a partner, and looking at what are the assets of the business, right? An email list can and should be one of them, right? So you have built this business, let's say for the past 10 years, and you all of a sudden have hundreds of people walking into your storefront every single week. Or let's say you get 200 unique visitors to your site every single week, and all these people, and then all those out of that percentage, or out of that number, let's say 10 of them become clients, or whatever it is. Let's say you're getting 40 new clients a week to the practice over the course of 10 years. All of those people, right? If you don't have a simple, unified way to keep in touch with those people, you have exhausted yourself getting these leads, acquiring these leads, right? And then they're kind of nowhere to be found, or they're somewhere in your EHR, but you can't export it, and they didn't opt into your email list. And there's this whole working backwards thing.
Mhm.
And then therapists go, well, creating an email list isn't going to get me clients, quote unquote, because that's usually what they're focused on, right? This kind of top of funnel stuff of like, I need more traffic. It's like, yes. And so that's the lead generation part. But in terms of the brand awareness piece and building, this asset on your business, start now. Or in most cases, it's like, yes, start yesterday.
Mhm.
It's a non-sexy kind of addition to your practice, but it's going to just support your practice in a way that you can't imagine until you start doing it. We brought on a new clinician recently, just introduced her to the email list yesterday, and boom, handful of clients are like, wow, this new therapist looks great. Here's her headshot, her bio, some fun facts about her. They're like, sign me up, right? That cost me $0 to do that, right? But I've been building
Right.
that list since the day we opened this practice.
Yeah, and you own that asset. You own that
Yeah,
direct communication. It's not borrowed land like on
yeah,
Facebook or Instagram. I can't.
yeah,
I'm very weary to get on social media just because like they change the rules all the time, and I just rather spend my time on a newsletter.
yeah. Me too.
Two quick stories on this. So I had a demo call for TheraSaas the other day, and I couldn't even like introduce myself. And the lady was like, "Brent, your content is amazing." And she just went on and on. She's
Mm,
like, "There's these other people out there, but you are just giving all this stuff away, and it's been so helpful." Blah blah. Like it took me 2 minutes to even just like introduce, but it was like she knew me. I had no idea who she was, but she knew me because she's just been consuming all my content,
yeah.
and that's what you want. Second story, my wife and I had some friends, new friends over. Their friends, their son is friends with our son, and we had like it was dinner. We broke bread together. It was great. We're sitting around the table. 2 hours in, the mom's like, "I've been reading your newsletter for a couple years, and I watch all your videos, and they're really helpful." So here
Love
we
it.
are, we're thinking like, oh, she actually knows a whole lot more about us as we're
Yeah,
just kind of an introduction. Here's the thing. People read it. If you're providing value and how you can help them solve problems or think through difficult life thing, and therapists have so much information in them to share, uh, it's an unstoppable brand, and people will read it.
yep,
We'll read it. So,
yep.
but how do you actually get those emails? So let me, this last one here is really with what I call a lead generator. So, I mean, I keep referring to all these free resources I'm going to give. That is a lead generator, right? So
Hmm.
put in the email, and in exchange for the email, you'll get all these free things. You could do an ebook. You could have a checklist. People love checklists, a resource guide, or like a mini course or something. They'll put in their email and they'll get that in return. Because everyone who visits your website, they're not going to be ready to schedule an appointment right away. So if you can get their email, then you can automate that kind of nurture that relationship on autopilot through some email. And so when they're ready to schedule an appointment, they're going to go with you instead of the competition because you've already nurtured that relationship with them.
Yeah.
So for this, the whole enlightenment stage here really is like create that lead generator. And then I'm going to say something I haven't mentioned yet, and that's systematize your referral outreach, like word of mouth and networking. There was a big slowdown in leads for those. A lot of my clients who haven't have developed word of mouth network yet.
Mm,
It was a slowdown, like people in October, just like across the country, because I have them all over. My clients
yeah.
are all over, just kind of slowed down, and people are freaking out. But those who had a digital and an organic pipeline for clients coming in, they really didn't see much of a dip. They
Hmm.
didn't, and didn't have to worry about it. So some things I want to give away here. So I have a free Canva template. So once you sign up for the free downloads, we'll give you a free Canva template of the lead generator that we've used for Kid Matters. It's called the 15 Signs of Childhood Anxiety and How to Help. You can take that and style it and put all whatever information you want on there. That's yours. I also have like a referral source tracking sheet, it's just a Google sheet. So you can start to track who your referral sources are,
Mm,
how many times they refer to you. And then I also have a webinar that I did with Dr. Deb Legge on how to grow your private practice with word of mouth marketing. So there's a link to that free webinar in there.
great.
So we talked a lot there about the enlightenment stage and can I trust you? I would love if you have any other thoughts you'd want to share.
I always do, but I also am curious to get to the final stage here with
Yeah, it's a
the
lot.
time
It's
we have
not as
left.
long. It's a lot
Yeah.
shorter. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, dear
Well,
listeners, thank you for hanging in there.
yeah. But yeah, building this relationship is everything. So a lot of people that come to your website are a maybe, right? And if your website is either book an appointment, like become a client, or in our case, so let's say it's a cash pay practice, they're paying hundreds of dollars a session, every single week, right?
Mhm.
So the lifetime value of a client on average is many hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And then your website is a yes or no question, right? Like either pay me thousands of dollars or get lost, right? And we never talk again.
Yeah.
Your lead generator, right? Lead magnet kind of makes it a maybe, right? Like, can we keep in touch? Or
Yeah.
I'm offering some free value. And I do this a lot in this business, right? Some
Mhm.
free value in exchange for your name and email address. And then it's up to me to also, as I like to put it, make myself useful to my email list, make myself useful to a new subscriber. So this idea of serving, and we have a really long nurture sequence for this business that goes on for months for new subscribers, right? And a
Nice.
lot of that is warming them up, telling them a bit about my story, building that relationship, just giving them little nuggets of value
Mhm.
on things that I know therapists struggle with, right? And that is working up to potentially a first sale, which might be a small sale, like a course or a $30 product, or
Mhm.
there's affiliate links in there, whatever it is, and building up to some higher ticket items. So just making this a maybe, like it's kind of like dating, right? It's like it's a
Yeah.
maybe. Can we
Love
keep
it.
in touch? I think is huge. And so therapists right now, like again, let's say you got 200 people walking into your store and walking right out every single week. If you don't have an option for it to be a maybe, then you're already losing a lot and setting a lot of money on fire, the money you're spending on your Google ads and your SEO and all these things, right?
Right.
And then letting leads just walk right out the door.
Yep. Yep. I couldn't say it better. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Try to capture them. They're coming there.
Yep.
All right. So this next one is the commitment stage, which is really the take my money stage. And let me move this here. So this is where you need to make it as easy as possible for them to schedule or book either book a consultation or schedule an appointment with them. So the goal is really to remove any confusion or friction around what's necessary to take steps to start therapy. And so for most practices, this is going to either be make a phone call or fill out a form on the website to get the conversation going, right? So filling out an intake form, I think, is my preferred way because you can get a lot of information to help qualify that lead right up front.
Yeah.
That's why TheraSaas it's been a game changer for the practices that I serve and why I'm now offering it to a lot of other people, to the public now. But
Hmm.
so basically, I think that's all it is really they're ready to buy because
Yeah.
you have answered the question, can you solve my problem? Yes. Can I trust you? Yes. And now they're ready to make that commitment. So make
Yeah.
it as easy as possible. Have a clear call to action, a big bright button on your website that will take them to either a form or they can make a phone call. And the
Yeah.
other action item is really to have a system in place to track those leads because really, some would say that the therapeutic process could begin at the website,
Hmm.
right? It could also be, it definitely begins at the moment when they raise their hand and they say, yes, I need help and I want you to help me. What happens after the click or the phone call is really important. So you want to have a system in place to be able to nurture that and take care of them because they're in a very vulnerable place. Because as therapists, you know this. So a couple of things I want to share is I just have a free tracking template. It's the Google Sheet that I developed for many of my clients before TheraSaas came along. And then my wife's like, this Google Sheet cannot sustain 120 people anymore.
Hmm.
Like it was growing and growing. It became an organizational nightmare. So
Hmm.
I was able to kind of cobble a couple things together, kind of design something using different technologies. And that's where TheraSaas came in. So I would love for practice owners who are like, I need transparency. I need support. I feel like
Yeah.
people are falling through the cracks. I don't have transparency as much as I like into the intake process. I do trust my intake coordinator, but I feel like I don't have insight to what they're doing all the time. Or my
Yeah.
intake coordinator is going to leave me, or they're going on vacation. What do I do? Right. So really having a centralized place where you can manage and keep track of all those leads. And not only
Yeah.
just that, but also having a dashboard with either if you want call tracking metrics or just marketing metrics. How many leads came in? How many converted? Where are they at in becoming a client in that stage? So if that interests you and your listeners, go to TheraSaas.com. That's just THERASAAS.com. So that is
Yeah.
the conversation around a sales funnel. So I'll leave it
Love
there,
it.
and we can.
Um, I have, yeah, I have a couple questions for you here because this intake process is a real head scratcher for a lot of practices and a moving target, for mine included, right? Because on one hand, so we have an intake coordinator
Mhm,
um, who books clients and does these initial phone calls, and then tries to match them with a therapist at my
mhm,
group practice. And we've experimented with this process. We've changed this process a number of times. For most practices like mine, we don't have someone who's answering live. So
mhm,
even if you have your phone number on your site, someone calls, right? I can't pay her 40 hours a week to sit there and answer the phone. And an answering service kind of feels too impersonal for me. So then the next best thing that we have to try to reduce that phone tag piece is like a Calendly or an Acuity scheduling type calendar integration where they click on, book a free consultation, they see her calendar, they can book a call as soon as today or this afternoon, right? And then it's a
mhm.
guaranteed time and we've captured that lead into our email list and et cetera. Um, a fear I have with the form is that it feels like this they fill out the form and then what, right? So obviously you can tell them on the other side of that form, here's what's going to happen now. But if they fill out that form, then what if that starts a game of phone tag between the intake coordinator and the client and tracking them down? So what have you found like kind of works for this process? How good is the form, and what would you say about this process in
Yeah.
general?
Okay, so for the form thing, we used to think that, um, if you're asking people too many questions on the form, they'll never fill it out. That's never been the case. Like,
Hmm.
so we have a fairly detailed form we like people to fill
Yeah.
out because we need to be able to qualify them pretty fast. If they're not, we're gonna like, you're not a good fit for the practice. Here's a list of referral sources and send it out.
Got it.
Send it to them. And there's templates inside TheraSaas. There's ways you can automate it. People also really like text messaging back and forth. So we
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
complaint text messaging to get things really, really fast. A lot at the end of I still think the best way is to get them on the phone,
Hmm.
right? I think you can close a lot quicker, but a lot of people are really busy. And so
Yeah.
if you have a good form, your intake coordinator can make good decisions on who they would pair best with, and then either write them an email or whatever. But people are also like busy. Like, they don't always respond for 1 or 2 days, right? So you need to be able to have a clear way to organize all that information too, and organize a wait list. Um, so when intakes coordinator go on, someone else will jump in and help out to continue those conversations because, but at least with TheraSaas, those emails and conversations and phone calls and text messages are all right there. You can see it. Anybody can jump in that's on your team,
So cool.
help with it. Yeah. So I I don't know if that answers your original
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a huge squeeze point
Huge,
for
huge.
practice
Oh my
owners.
gosh, it's make or break, right? I mean, one thing I do with my coaching clients, the therapists that I coach, is I have them track their numbers in my owner dashboard. It's a Google sheet, but
Mhm,
help them identify the key metrics of their business. So for instance, let's say, top of the funnel number is website visitors. How many people came to the site in a given week? And out of those people, how many of those either booked a call, right, or inquired? Let's say again, 200 people and 10 people booked a call or whatever. And then out of that many people, how many converted into clients?
mhm,
And then we have benchmarks that we kind of shoot for, or even measuring where they're at now. Let's say you're converting only 20% of your leads, right? Well, why
mhm.
is that? What are the objections, right? Is it really about the fees? Do you not have enough female clinicians, right? You got to really know what's going on there with those phone calls, right? And the information that your intake coordinator is getting about why people aren't moving forward, right? Because
Yeah,
that can be make or break too, right? It's like, well, they all want a male clinician who has
huge.
530 slots, right? Well, go find that male clinician, right? It
Mhm.
informs your hiring, right? Or whatever it is. But knowing where the funnel is leaking, right? Like, do you have a traffic problem? Do you have an intake coordinator problem? Is that person coachable, right? Are your fees actually too high? Is that really the truth? Or have you just kind of assumed that, right? Based on a feeling, which is often the case.
Yeah.
So I just love having those numbers and looking at them at least once a week of like, here the taking the pulse of my business, here are the vital signs of my business, um, and here's the problem I'm working on. In other words, here's the part of the funnel I'm working on right now, whether it's coaching my intake coordinator or creating a lead magnet or really focusing on traffic. Like that's my focus for this quarter, for instance.
Yeah. No, that's all good. Yeah, having an executive dashboard or something like that to share is huge, and being able
Hmm.
to get to the information quick, or pulling the information, finding the information and pulling it in quickly. So that's where like a really helpful EHR comes in,
Yeah.
or CRM like TheraSaas, where you can just gather that information real fast. Then you can have a complete picture of how you're like the health of your practice.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like there's a little thing inside TheraSaas. I absolutely love it, where if you can mark the lead as lost, but you can say why. You can leave
Hmm.
it as, like, why did they do it? And you can quickly
Yeah.
get that information. Just so you just have a historical record of all the things.
Totally.
And
And as a practice owner, I want to know that, right? So, for instance, yesterday, my intake coordinator said, "Hey, people are asking more for a female clinician that does EMDR." So, an option I have is, again, get another female clinician who does EMDR and meet that need, right? If
yeah.
there's 6 people this week that were looking for that specifically, and I don't have that, so it's just simple supply and demand, right? But I
Mhm.
don't know that unless she's tracking that somewhere and in communication with me about it, right?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right. Because it's a lot about just, the same thing why you have QuickBooks or some sort of financial record, right? So because you're just not like, well, how profitable was I? And you're like, I don't know. Right. You
Yeah.
want numbers so you can sleep better at night.
Yeah.
And then, when your partner or spouse asks you how things are going, you can give
Yep.
them good
Yep.
answers.
Totally. Totally. Um, we're right at time, Brent, man. I could talk to you for days. I mean, you have a rare combination of um, really being a great marketer and understanding even the kind of creative side of marketing and branding, but also being a systems guy, which I really love that you can kind of do both. And you see how both really have to go hand in hand, right? And successful practice growth. So, systems and processes piece, and also the marketing piece working in tandem. So,
No, thank you.
I like the
Appreciate
way you think about practice building, and I know you've helped a lot of therapists, and will continue to. That being said, maybe you can just lead us out with kind of how people can learn more about you and how they can get started.
Yeah, I think one, you should download, just go to brandyourpractice.com. There'll be a link in the description. It's just sales dash funnel dash resources. That's a lot of dashes, but brandyourpractice.com, sales dash funnel dash resources. Or you can just scan the QR code that's on the slide, and that's going to give you access to over 17 free resources that I've either mentioned or that you can get. And then I also want you to think about like funnel hacking a little bit. So I want you
Hmm.
to experience, because you'll get emails from me, full transfer. You're going to get some emails from me,
Yeah,
along with those free resources. And I want you to experience that and be like, what could be possible for my own practice and building out my own sales funnel. So I
love
encourage
it.
you to do that. Definitely check out TheraSaas if the CRM thing is interested for you. Really excited to get that going as well. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me on your
You
podcast. I mean,
got it.
what a blessing to share this information. So I hope your listeners found it really helpful, and they'll keep coming back and listening for days to come.
You got it. Yeah, you're welcome back anytime. Thanks again for doing this, Brent. We'll put links to everything in the show notes or description, of course. And then, yeah, thanks again to Brent for being here, and to the folks listening and watching. We'll see you in the next one.
All
Thanks
right.
again, and thanks to Jane for sponsoring today's episode. See you soon.